Hello, how you doing? I'm Craig Parkinson. You are listening to the Two Shot Podcast. Sit yourself down, pop the kettle on. We're going to have a nice old chat. Who's it with this week? I'm going to tell you right now. How the devil are you? Everything good? Yeah, coping? Just about. Good. It's episode 38 of the Two Shot Podcast, and this week it's a big one. I mean, this is a long one. It's with Lee Wynter. It's an incredible episode. We're so pleased that he came in and had a chat, and chat he did. This is, I think it's around the 2.5 hour mark. Now, we were going to break it up into two parts to make it sort of more palatable. But then when I was going back and re-listening to it again, it's got such a good flow, and I wanted you, the listener, to be the one to decide if you want to pause it. That's a nice place for me to pause. Sometimes when you do 1 and 2 parts, you have to think, oh, well, how did it leave? And I didn't want to do another intro and confuse people. So we didn't do that. But depending on what you're doing, look, if you're on a long car journey, stick this on. This is the one for you. It'll get you there. Yeah, so I'm not going to waffle on. Let's get down to it. Danny touches on, it's incredible what he doesn't touch on. We talk about his relationship with his mother, family, school, sexuality, diversity, Act for Change, Lambda, conflicts, loads of things. It's really brilliant. So look, sit down, strap in, jump in the car, whatever you're doing, and get down to this. It's episode 38 of the Two Shot Podcast with Lee Wynter. I'll see you at the end. Cheers. Thanks for coming in, though, because I know you're feeling shit.
I'm like Judi Dench, never off.
And we've got enough lights here to sort you out for the next hour or so. They'll work it. So where do you live now, Dan?
I live right now in Essex, where I grew up.
Barking?
In Barking. I grew up in Barking. No, I was born in Barking. But they knocked the hospital down soon after. And I was brought up in Clayhall, Barkingside, Redbridge, that sort of area. So sort of the arsehole of the world at the end of the Central Line.
Right.
Opposite direction to Ealing Broadway. And I'm living there at the moment with my mother. And I'm in my childhood bedroom. And
what's it like being back? How long have you been back there?
On and off over the last 5 or 6 years, on and off. It's hard. It's really, really hard.
Hard to be there, or?
It's just this plethora of emotions, because I had quite a troubled upbringing. And so when you're in your childhood bedroom and you're waking up in your childhood bedroom, you can feel really sometimes totally back there.
And memories flooding back.
Yeah. My friends always joke that my mother and I were like people that know my mother's character, and people who know my character, they always joke that we're like Betty Davis and Joan Crawford in the film Whatever Happened to Baby Jane. And there's sometimes where I'm standing in the kitchen cooking, and there's a meat knife, and I'm holding it, and it's a very true and honest emotion. I feel that I want to pick up this knife and plunge it through her, because that's how much we get each other's goat, really. We know exactly the right things to say.
But obviously there's a deep love there as well.
Oh, totally. Yeah. But it's also, but I don't want to say it's like this sort of, because she's from the East End, her family, and mothers with their sons from the East End, there's this sort of, well, you see it on EastEnders, don't you? There's a sort of my boy sort of attitude. And
almost Italian.
Yeah, and my mum is half Italian, so that she couldn't, no matter how much she tries that with me, I've always sort of batted that off. So it's a very strange combination of people.
And what did your mum do? Or what does she do for a living?
My mum, when I was... she always wanted to be a housewife.
Really?
That was... I said to her a few years back, what did you want to do? And she said, I just wanted to be a housewife.
What, and raise kids?
Yeah. And she thought she was going to have me, and which she did. And she thought she was going to have more children after that. So she really believed that she'd be a housewife and set up a family. And she came from a big family herself. Her mother had 14 brothers and sisters.
Really? Now that is a big family.
My mother's mother, who brought me up, my nan, Lily, while my mother was at work, she was a Romany gypsy.
Right.
So she was the eldest of 14 brothers and sisters. One of them died in childbirth. She died at birth. But there were 14 brothers and sisters, and my nan brought them up. Never had an education, couldn't read or write, and gave her life up to facilitate her brothers and sisters. And then she was the last to up and leave herself.
Right.
Then had my mother and 2 other daughters. Yeah.
And when... Was it always you and your mum? Because I know you grew up in a single-parent house, but I was wondering when your dad left, or...
I don't think my dad ever did leave. I would have loved it if he did when I was a kid.
Yeah.
Because then I would have sort of established some sort of normality. But he sort of kept drifting back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And that was, I think, part of the troubling childhood. That was really fucking deeply confusing to your brain as a child.
More disruptive.
Because you're just like, if you're going to go, go.
Yeah.
But don't sort of drip feed this, what could be, to, what do they call it? When you're in your infancy, when you're a child, they call it, like, your id is being made. A child's id is being made. Their brain is being formed in the first 4 years.
Yeah.
And at that point in my life, I really, really could have done with him not being there, looking back on it. And I think my mother realises that only 36 years later. She kind of gets that, which is, it's good that we arrived at that point where we both realise that a lot of energy was wasted when we could have been happier. But
Completely have a clean break.
yeah, I think so.
What did your dad do for a living, or what does he do for a living?
He's a wheeler and dealer, and he is a businessman who has quite a few businesses. He used to run a firm in Soho, providing security for all the sex shops.
Oh, really?
And obviously over the last few years, if you look around Soho, we're sat in Soho now, you see that quite a lot of them have gone.
Yeah. There used to be, from where we are now, round the corner from Greek Street, when I was at drama school, my friend's boyfriend used to work there part-time just to earn some money. There used to be like 3 round the corner.
Yeah.
Remember, on Old Compton Street, and they're
I
not
remember.
there anymore. They're now turned into restaurants.
There was one as soon as you came out of Tottenham Court Road and turned around a corner, which is now the Crossrail's being built there. But I remember in my early 20s coming and seeing my dad outside the sex shop. It was just... I quite like that eccentricity, that's what he did, provided this security for the sex shops in Soho. I like that, as opposed to the fact that, some fathers went to Canary Wharf every day. I liked that. It's one of the very few factors I liked about him. But I think, no, what else did he do? He had lots of fingers in lots of different pies. So in Essex, where I was brought up, there were lots of car lots. The stereotype of the wheeler-dealer Essex man, on the car front with the lads.
Yeah.
And that was my dad.
Right.
But he, 6'3", and looked like Stormzy.
Right.
And big, built brick shit house. Had this sort of effeminate child who loved Liza Minnelli and Barbara Streisand. Like, what on earth do we do with that? Where did it come from? This thing. But yeah, he had lots of different businesses, but I always knew there were dodgy things that he did, which always made me feel sort of like there was a part of his life that I didn't have access to, but was secret.
Yeah.
There were things about his life that I didn't quite know. I remember we weren't, for example, when I was growing up, I wasn't allowed to have his phone number. Wow. I had his mobile phone number. He used to have this brick phone like Del Boy had, but his house phone, because he had his own flat, we never had I never had that.
Did you go round?
I don't know whether it's because he thought my mother would be phoning up all the time, obsessively. Probably, maybe she would have. But the fact that I was his child and I was denied that was one of many factors which sort of makes you feel you weren't a priority at all, really.
And did you feel that you weren't a priority? Were you made to feel that, do you think?
Unintentionally, because I think they're both... I mean, you'll know yourself, with your parents, I think, at a later age in life, when you say to them, why did you do that? Why did you put up with that? Why did you let that happen? And I've said that to my mother so many times, it's ridiculous. Her whole life is like a Tennessee Williams play. But I said to her on various occasions, and I remember once she said to me, I did the best I could. I truly believed at the time I was doing the best that I could for you, my mother said. And I believe her.
Yeah.
She was. And I think that he had no boundaries of how to, or he had no understanding of how to be a parent because he'd had such an awful childhood himself. My father,
Right.
He'd had the strict Jamaican childhood. One of the big cliches that my father always would say to me was, well, I had it much worse than you. And I'd be like, well, yeah, but my childhood wasn't your childhood.
Yeah.
They're two completely different things. And to compare them is insane.
Yeah.
Because mine was mine. And I know that his father, who passed away last year, for example, he was very violent man towards my father. I know that I remember my father telling me when he wet the bed, his father would kick him outside into the yard and he'd have to stand there in the snow. Like, he was a very brutally harsh man to my father.
Was any of that passed down to your dad?
And
Forgive
that
me
was,
if I'm going
No,
too
you
far.
can. Oh, you can. I've had enough therapy to talk about it. So it was absolutely passed on to my dad. And I think that frightened him. It frightened him.
It's interesting when some people become parents because they say, oh, well, it completely changes my outlook. I remember when I became a dad, I went out the door and I was on the phone talking to my wife's family saying, oh, we've just had a little baby boy. And I was looking out, and we live in the countryside, and I was looking out to the hills and the colours, everything just changed. It just seemed different to me. And then you do speak to some people who became parents and they go, yeah, I just never took to it. I just need to carry on with my own life. And it just seems to me that it is selfish, really, but also sometimes it's not their fault, as you say. It's passed down.
It's passed down, and it's our biological chemistry, our programming is also different. But did you came outside when you had your child and you felt everything was vibrant?
Yeah, I thought, oh, well, everything's changed now. Everything has just changed, and I have no control over that. And then all the worry kicks in. Oh, are they gonna sleep through the night? And you think they've died. Oh, you're constantly thinking that your child was going to die.
Totally.
In the night.
And my mother was exactly the same with me, to the point of.
Oh, so she had those maternal instincts. They
Oh,
kicked in.
But Craig, we're talking to the point of insanity. Like, it's. I mentioned Tennessee Williams earlier, my playwright who sort of changed my life when I was in my mid-20s discovering him. And the reason is because the relationship that writer had with his mother was so profound.
Yeah.
And so complicated. It wasn't just, I love my mother. It was much, much more love, hate, ugly, messy, complicated, codependent feelings. Yeah. And I totally identify with that. And with my mother, I know that she was so obsessive about me as a child. My gran, who's 94, I went to see her a couple of weeks ago, and so I was doing a play recently, and I couldn't see her over Christmas, and I hadn't seen her in 2 months, and suddenly felt like a terrible, terrible fucking grandson. And when the play was over, I was like, get the fuck round, guilt on my shoulder. And I went round to see her, and we were talking, and she was asking how my mum was, because she has a lot of admiration and love for my mum, my father's mother, probably because she knows what my mother put up with. But my aunt, my dad's sister, and my gran, they said, how is she? And I said, just the same, just so obsessive compulsive, and she's like, her house is so clean, it's extraordinary, it's another level. And they said, well, when you were a kid, you never had a speck on you, like not a speck. You weren't allowed to get dirty. Even though you were a little boy, and that's what little boys do. If you were sick, it was gone within seconds. Her instinct, if I fell to the floor, she'd run and pick me up. If I looked like I wasn't breathing in the night, she'd hold a spoon to my face. Right. It was another level. Another level. And it was, and I think because my father wasn't there at the beginning of my life in my infancy, I think it sort of ramped up because it was just her and this baby. Yeah, so she had something to prove. Yeah, and it's sort of... She's such a loving creature. She's this Italian, mix of Italian, Romany gypsy. She's this Cockney lady who is just all feeling. I always describe her to people as... I was about to say, have you seen that film? Of course you've seen that film. You worked with him in Secrets and Lies. Brenda Blethyn and Mike Lee's Secrets and Lies. Yeah. I always describe to lovers when they're like, what's your mum like? She's Brenda Blethyn in Secrets and Lies. Wow, right. She's that level of fragility and deep regret for what she's done in the past, not quite knowing how to cope with that, but just all love, like, through and through, love. Yeah. And in a way, do you feel that you moving back to your childhood home over these years, have you gone back to support her and to look after her, or...? Oh, it's much, much... deeper than that? Much, much complicated. When I was in my... what time is it? Been here for 15 minutes, jump into the deep end. When I was in my... That's what we do, it's fine. Totally. When I was in my mid-20s, I had a breakdown, and I needed help and support, and I moved back home with my mother, and it just became, when I was well again, it became so easy because of what we do, the nature of our profession, not knowing when you're working 1 minute to the next, and finding at the time it was like trying to find 400, 500 quid a month to pay rent. By the time I was well, after this breakdown I had in my mid to late 20s, I was suddenly like looking for places to rent and realising there were 700, 800. I was like, well, I'll just stay here. And it became this easy thing. Yeah. But I do I look at it now and it's become too easy. It's become too easy for me to stay. And do you think you need to do something about that? Absolutely. Absolutely. I spent the best part of Tuesday or Wednesday last week, talking to one of my friends about it, and she's got such big things happening in her life at the moment. Film out, and being asked to do this, left, right and centre. And I'm always moved with friendships when someone puts all that to one side and just listens to your shit.
Yeah. Which we don't do enough.
No.
I mean, I get to do it, quite a lot, which I love, because we don't do it enough. Like,
I mean, what you need to do after this is do a PhD in psychology, for sure. Because I've heard these podcasts.
That's when I give up acting and try and do this. It's funny because when you were talking before, you went, "Oh, the thing is, Craig," and I went, "God, I don't think a lot of people say your name enough." A weird thing. Do you know what I mean?
Really?
You go, and when people say a lot, "How are you?" But they don't go, "How are you?" And feel free to tell me everything and put the focus and the spotlight on you for a minute. How are you doing? Actually, I'm not doing too good today.
I think the thing is people ask how you are. They don't really care if you're ill or your dog's dead.
No.
They don't care about that. But we sort of we get to a point in our lives where we realise that. But that's why that thing that the drag artist RuPaul says, and I'm sure many a motherfucker said it before him, find your tribe. And that's why it's so important to find your tribe.
I love that that's come back. This has come back into the podcast before.
It's important. It's vital. It's key. It really is.
The phrase that comes up again and again is find your people. And it's exactly, you're saying exactly the same thing. It is important because I think you do need to feel safe, and you need to know that someone's there that you can talk to, especially in this day and age.
I think cause the big thing is when you're out in the suburbs, you feel like most of the time you spend there, you feel like you're a freak. You're an outsider. You're some sort of strange, lonely person who's so tragic. I grew up in the place where I grew up. I was very lucky because when I was at high school, I didn't have a tribe, but I found the art rooms, and I remember the art rooms being like a haven.
Yeah.
And my art teacher, Mr. Wright, around about the age of I was like 12 or 13, was like introducing me to Hockney and Warhol, and because I was this gay kid who couldn't say he was a gay kid. I loved fucking Madonna and Michael Jackson were my gods. They were like fucking Beyonce's and Taylor Swift have now, but beyond, because they had a message.
Yeah.
And I know that I remember thinking, I remember reading somewhere like in Smash Hits that Madonna went out with this artist called Basquiat, and I was like, and the next thing I was at school and I was like talking to my art teacher about Basquiat, and he was like getting out all of these fucking large overprint sized books, and I was getting really excited about it. So the art room was a sort of a version of my tribe before I had a tribe.
Yeah. So you were saying that you didn't have a tribe at school. So
no.
Was it quite lonely? Or?
Well, I don't want to say woe is me. No, I had a sort of
you could be lonely and be kind of
I was
happy
in
with it.
Corner crying. That wasn't my teenagehood at all. But because I was a mouthy little motherfucker. I was so my saving grace, and I've always said this, and some people listen to this and laugh because they'll just think, well, where is it? But my saving grace has always been my wit. And it's got me out of so many scenarios and situations.
Yeah.
And at high school, I was just very vigorously opinionated about shit.
I was going to say that because
I don't know where that came from at high school, actually, thinking about it. I'm not quite sure where the need to defend other people. I remember Mrs. Jacobs, my maths teacher in year 7. What's year 7? Your first year of high school.
Yeah.
And I remember being this kid, like 11 or 12, and her saying, like, stop playing the classroom lawyer, Danny, because it should be punishing this child. And I'd be sort of like leaping to their defence.
And standing up for the injustices.
Standing up for their injustice.
Yeah.
I only just remembered that. But yeah, I don't know where it... I think it was... Actually, no. It was born out of probably my father. And sort of...
Was he quite opinionated?
No, well, he is. But I think more the injustices that I saw him demonstrate to us.
Right, okay.
That may have been one of the sort of reasons and the fomenting of becoming very vocal.
Did you
to
ever
speak against things.
Did you ever feel trapped that you couldn't say who you really were at school?
Always.
Even though you knew you were gay?
Always. I remember thinking at the age of 10 or 11, I remember thinking, like, if I ever come out, this is at 10 or 11,
yeah.
I was like, if I ever come out, I'm going to have to move to Spain.
And reinvent yourself.
I'm going to move to Spain. And I don't know why the fuck I thought Spain.
Why Spain?
I was like, well, I was really into El Dorado at the time, but I don't know why I thought Spain, but I thought that it would be a good idea to just go, because there was a kid in my class, and we know that I think the most lucid people with their tongues are children, teenagers, and old people.
Yeah.
They don't give a flying fuck. And I remember this kid in my classroom saying that in the middle of an argument, I'm in the middle of the classroom, I'm holding my own, arguing over some shit, don't remember what. And we're downstairs in a biology class. And this kid called David, I won't say his last name, but he said, Danny, you're just going to become like one of Madonna's dancers and die of AIDS. And I had no words to fight back, because that at the time terrified the life out of me, because one of my mum's friends died of AIDS, and that was a very big, prominent thing when I was growing up, in a way that to the generation coming through now who are 11 or 12 at school, it's not. But I remember kids in the playground, like, instead of playing it, you'd sort of play, like, sort of tag someone and go, AIDS. Like, do you remember that?
I mean, looking
but it was a normal, it was so normal to do that. And this was before it creeped into the vernacular of saying things are a bit gay, or that's a bit gay. This was way before that. Yeah. And I think that sort of always stayed in my mind. This kid saying that that's what I will end up like, because it was so concrete. Yeah. He'd so thought about it. He'd so thought that I like this musician, and that this kid's clearly gay, and the most bitter, awful thing, and it's always stuck with me.
Did you ever speak to your mum about it?
Well, this is the interesting thing. You've got a woman who, when I was growing up, grew up in a council flat, and we had no lino on the floor. But, no, we had lino on the floor, but no carpet. Right. Which my mum was saving for carpet. She was saving for her furniture, and which we eventually got. And she's so house proud. But I remember when we first moved into our council flat, this masonette in Clayhall, the television, a little Sony box, portable TV, it rested on a stack of Vogue magazines. And I remember reading the Vogue magazines and seeing all the supermodels. Yeah. And so I knew who they were. My mum was sort of, it was just this normal thing for her son to be sat there reading them. I'd read her magazines on bloody dry flower arranging. But then at the age of 17, 18, when I came back from working at Sainsbury's one night, I told her that I was gay. I mean, first of all, it was ridiculous. I needed to fucking tell her. But when I told her, I remember her standing there holding a mug of tea, and she just kept holding it throughout the whole thing, and then just gave this sort of reaction of shock and disbelief.
Really?
And I was so enraged by that. Because I was like, well, why are you doing that to me? You must have known.
And this was the first person you'd ever told?
Well, no, it's not the first one I told, but she wasn't the first person I told, but she was really hurt by it. And I remember her standing in the kitchen, 'cause she's an obsessive compulsive. She'd put the cup in bleach afterwards, and she's just bleaching this cup standing at the sink. And my point in telling you this is that there's a level of denial, even when you know something. The most hard things to face are things that you've already known, I think.
Yeah. Did you feel a sense of... Even though you said you were enraged, you were quite angry with her reaction to it. Did you discuss that again? Did you ask her, why were you angry?
I did. And I think she felt it was the fact that, because she needs to be in every single orifice of my life, I think it was because I'd not said before.
Right.
I think that's what it came down to.
Do you find that claustrophobic?
Intensely so. Intensely.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I know that as an actor I work, and I've never gone from job to job to job. I've never been that kind of actor. But when I've got 3 or 4 or 5 months go by, it's become a terrible thing for me to have to admit, but I find it easy, as I've said, to stay with my mother.
Yeah.
I find it so easy because I see friends busting a fucking gut and working in environments that I would never want to work in, and maybe should. And I don't do that. And I think part of it is, it's not a snobbery. I think part of it is a genuine phobia of being around people.
Well, go back to the art classroom where you found a new calling there. What did the art do for you at that point? With the Basquiat and the Warhol and the Hockney?
Just totally freed me up. Because, like, for example, I mean, even earlier than that, we studied the Futurists. And I was thinking, wow, these people who were here hundreds, thousands of years before me.
Yeah.
They're extraordinary. These people finding new forms and cultivating tastes. I was just always fascinated and intrigued by that. Always. And I saw it as highbrow because before that, that was another thing. I saw it as highbrow, something I wasn't given access to earlier on in my childhood.
Yeah.
But in my teenage years at school was. And this was just run-of-the-mill comp in Essex. But before that, I loved more, like, it was old school Hollywood, MGM. I was obsessed obsessed by Fred Astaire and Ginger Rogers. My nan and granddad used to look after me. I remember my granddad, he was retired then because he was a fruit and veg seller, and he had his own stalls, a series of stalls along Leytonstone High Road. But he was like all washed out by the time I arrived on the planet. And I'd sit, when he was retired, growing up, when I was a kid, watching, like, Flying Down to Rio, Top Hat, Easter Parade. I remember specifically there was this film where the MGM did, which is like a hits mega mix of all their greatest things, called That's Entertainment.
Yeah, I remember.
It's in like
that. Yeah.
2 or 3 parts.
Yeah.
And I was just beguiled. I was like, who is this woman singing Get Happy? Oh my God. Who is that? And I knew of a lot of people before I knew their names.
Yeah. It used to be on BBC Two.
It was
on at like
just
10 o'clock in the morning, I remember.
Oh, it was amazing.
Yeah.
And because you'd sit there and you just, I don't know, like now you turn on TV in the morning and it's Jeremy Kyle, and it might be a repeat of Fraser. Not knocking Fraser, love it. But it was
they're
just
not massive inspirations, really, are they?
It was a norm.
Honest.
It was a norm. But I sort of, one of the things my mum says to me, or has said to me in the past, is, you did that yourself, in terms of my education or finding art, or she always says to me, even now, like, you did all that on your own. And I think partly, yes, but it would be foolhardy to say that my mother, when I was a kid, she was a secretary in a jeweller's, but in order for me to have certain things and do certain things, go to a maths tutor and still not get my maths GCSE, was to go and clean toilets of other people's houses.
Yeah.
Because we were on the council estate and round the corner were the big houses that actually, now I'm older, aren't big houses at all. They're just houses, Danny.
Yeah.
But I remember quite clearly that she did play her part in,
Of course,
in making sure that I survived.
Yeah. Yeah.
Lived.
And also, in a way, you're right. She is right, but you don't get to do anything just by yourself. There's always somebody that opens the door,
Always.
or somebody that shines a light on that thing, and you go, oh, "Well, I never saw it like that before. I never saw that before."
Totally. And I sort of, there's a great shame there. I think shame's an important thing to come back to, as well as love, but shame, because
For yourself? Or?
Yeah, I remember being deeply, deeply ashamed of where I came from, of who I was.
Because you don't sound like you're from Essex.
No, I turned up at Lambda speaking how I speak now, and they all thought I was like the son of, I remember like someone in my year said, where are your parents from? And I said, I'm from Essex. And they just thought it was a joke, so they thought I was the son of some sort of Egyptian tycoon. But no, the shame is an important thing to come back to, because I consciously changed how I spoke.
When?
When I was 19 years old, I consciously made an effort to change how I spoke. I was always softly spoken, but I made more of an effort. And the reason for this was because my ambition was so white heat Macbeth-like of, I am going to fucking become an actor. And it was so intense that at the age of 18, I went to Middlesex University. I got in through clearing.
Right.
So looking back, I don't think they even saw me as talented enough to go to Middlesex University. So I I got in through clearing, and then when I was there, I was like, well, I'm learning all this stuff. This is amazing. I'm learning about Artaud and Brecht and Meyerhold and all these amazing people, writings of Germaine Greer, Susan Sontag's Against Interpretation. John Berger's ways of seeing changed me completely, picking up this book. But I'm being doused in all this information, but a lot of our course was being cut because it was under Blair's government. He'd said a few years before, education, and then all of a sudden took it away. And I hadn't finished mine.
Yeah.
And so I was like, well, I'm going to have to leave this place, Middlesex, halfway through the course, not stay the 3 years. I've got to go and apply to other drama schools. I've got to get out there and pick up the stage. And it was the days where the stage had like good auditions that you could go to.
Yeah.
Like, not like now where it's just like opinion pieces on, I don't know what I thought of Hamilton. But like it really had a function then. And I remember picking it up and going to a few open auditions, and I was about 19, and I put myself care of Spotlight, because that's how I was like, I'm going to be an actor. That's what you do. And so I put myself care of Spotlight, and the first audition I got was for The Bill, and it was to play like drug dealer number 4. And I'm reading all these books at the same time I'm just telling you about it. I was like, bitch, please, you serious? You want me to play drug dealer number fucking 4 in The Bill? I mean, I love June from The Bill, but I'm not doing that. So I took myself out of Spotlight because I was so offended by that. And that's what I kept getting, that kind of character. I was like, what, just because my visage, because I am this mixed race guy, that's what you see me as.
Yeah.
But I am so much more than that. And I sound like I had confidence then, but I was always down on myself. But I had this inner sort of spark, which was like, no, I'm going to do Pinter. I'm not going to do drug dealer number 4 in The Bill. And I, roundabout then, consciously started changing my voice. And people ask me about that, and I think it's sad that I had to do it. But it was part of me getting more opportunities.
Yeah, you were taking control. You were going, well, if you think I'm fitting into that mold just because of the way I look or the way I sound,
yeah,
I'm going to do something about it.
Yeah, and what's so ironic, the most ironic thing about this is that my first major job, well, actually my first job was in the final year of drama school. I was let out to do Trial and Retribution. But when I left drama school, my first ever professional gig properly was for Stephen Polikoff. And it was the lead in 2 of his films, playing a character that is absolutely where I'm from.
Right.
So I spoke more like that. Like, it was totally how I spoke when I was a kid.
Yeah.
And the big thing was, I was like, oh, God, you're marvellous. I was like, well, no, I just know this world. Actually, it's not a stretch at all.
Danny, I know we're jumping around a lot, but I just
sorry,
I'm
sorry.
That's perfectly fine. We don't do anything. We've noticed and we've talked about when art came into your life, but we haven't really spoken about when acting came into your life. I still don't know. Was it at high school?
I think I was always taken, when I was a kid, I was taken to see the Panto at the Kenneth More Theatre in Ilford. And I was always totally beguiled by the Ugly Sisters, totally, obviously, the men in the dresses, naturally. I saw a few Amdram productions there, and I remember thinking they're a bit shit, but I don't think it was necessarily that. It was watching stuff like with my granddad. Those were the sort of times that I think the gates opened to the world that I wanted to be a part of, like watching the Carry-Ons
Yeah.
Kenneth Williams was huge, no surprise, huge influence. Joan Sims, hearing those people who are masters at their craft, who today kids would sneer at that comedy, but it's masterful, and there's not many people left who can do it. And I had a real fascination with that, the landing of a laugh, timing. My family, and this has come up on your podcast quite a lot, I've listened to a few of them. The thing that keeps coming up is Fools and Horses. As a working class kid in my household, that was a big thing. Only Fools and Horses.
It's so funny because I recorded
Huge
episode yesterday, and
again.
It came up again.
And I think that it needs to be acknowledged that that man's writing, what he was doing when he wrote that, wasn't just showing you a working class family fighting for survival. He was writing, I think, a version of, like, you know, when you see King Lear and you're watching The Fool, or you're watching 12th Night and you're seeing Feste, the person with the least power, the all-licensed fool, has the most power to actually say something that means any shit.
Yeah.
And I think that's what John Sullivan was doing, because of those characters, from people that walk into the Nag's Head and say one or two lines to your leads in it. They're so clear. And there's a constant underneath. The comedy is filled with this constant desperate need to survive, because you don't know where your next meal's coming from, and you need your money to live. You have to have your money to live.
There was an underlying sadness as well. I always thought there was some episode I remember that really brought me to tears when I was young, because of the realism of what was playing out.
Oh my God, there's this episode where I used to watch it with my family, but there's an episode where Derek sits upstairs in the tank room of Nelson Mandela Flats. He goes up there and finds Rodney, who's on the run from the police because they think that he's raped a girl. And that was in like the first or second series, I think. The first or second series. And Rodney's terrified because he didn't. He just touched this. He didn't touch this girl. He just went to make sure she was all right in the street.
God.
And Del goes up there into the tank room because of what's done it is that he can smell Rodney's wacky backy in the tank room. And that's led him to Rodney thinking that he's done a runner. And at the end of it, he has this heart-to-heart with his brother. But when he comes back to the flat, he knows that he wasn't going to go that far, because he realised that Rodney didn't take his passport. So it was sort of, they'd go dark and then they'd come back to the comedy.
Can you imagine that bit of storyline nowadays on a pre-Watershed comedy programme? Never happened, would it?
But watching with my family, now you say that, watching with my family stuff like Steptoe, that I found that even sadder than Only Fools and Horses. Probably because I'm living it right now with my mother. But all of that really struck a chord as a working class person.
It's interesting that comedy starts to inspire so many people, especially from a working class background.
I think so, because you need it, don't you?
Yeah.
You got to. You have to have the outlet, the physical outlet of laughter.
Well, I always say, and still true to this day, the one thing that never fails to make me laugh, and sometimes make me cry, is Les Dawson playing the piano badly.
Oh my God.
We were talking about the
because
skill and the craft before. There was a man who had it all. But also I felt an
It's the
extreme sadness.
It's the pathos, because you've got the skill.
Yeah.
And at the same time, you sort of... That's what I said before earlier about Kenneth Williams. You've got someone that is... You've got skill. And in the case of someone like Les or Kenneth, Frankie Howard, any of that lot, you also know we now know the story of their life. And you just go, oh, God.
Look at what you were battling with.
But how it also comes back to actors, and when we sort of the be-all and end-all of what we do, how those people that I've just mentioned, they sort of couldn't live without it, could they? And
Do you find that as an actor?
Totally. Peter Gill said of writers, you have to have the illness, and I'd apply that to actors.
Yeah.
The best actors I know, if they didn't stop after drama school and pack it in straight away, which
Let's
happens,
face it, a lot of
happens
them do.
all the time, and I understand the reasons. Particularly my girlfriends who I came out of drama school with, a lot of them have just stopped, and I understand really why as well, because they want to have families, and as we know, there's campaigns for people, parents in performing arts.
Yeah.
It's so difficult to have that because you are seen as having your cake and eating it. But I think girls have it much, much worse.
Yeah.
Much worse, because there's more of them.
It's always been like that, though, hasn't it?
Yeah, always. More of them apply to drama school. I work at Lambda sometimes. We really are jumping around now, aren't we?
Yeah.
So I work at Lambda sometimes, and I sit on their audition panel for first round auditions, and I watch these kids come in and whack out their Shakespeare, their classical or their modern. And it's so hard, but there's just so many more girls. And you're right, it always has been that way, but the number over the last few years, talking to one of the head of acting at Lambda and the registrar, the number has gone up by the tens of thousands of the people applying.
Yeah.
And each year it keeps exceeding, going up and up and up. There's people who see this as a viable profession. But to get back to the Peter Gill thing, you have to have the illness. I truly believe that. Because the people that... I know that I had it at school. I know that a good friend of mine in my year, one of my closest friends, Hugh Skinner, he had it. And Ruth Wilson, she's definitely had it. And it's this... It's almost this obsessive desire to know your shit.
Yeah, and it's a need and a want to have... Yeah, I have to do this.
I have to do this. We were at the theatre every night.
A student?
Every night. Like, on Friday night, I was feeling a bit blue. And Hugh Skinner called me up, same drama school year, and he was like, do you fancy seeing Carmen at the Royal Opera House tonight? This was this Friday gone. I was like, how much are the tickets? They're free. Yeah, definitely, I'm coming. And my point in telling you this is that it sort of dawned on me that we've been doing this for 15 years, he and I, going to the theatre together and going, like, to see everything that's on. Not just what we're told to watch by our critics, but, like, you know, traipsing out to the New End Theatre in Hampstead to watch some obscure bollocks about Sylvia Plath. You know, every night during Lambda, when we weren't working, rehearsing, or getting pissed in the pub, we were at the theatre. It was like an illness. We needed to know. It was
how can
like
you
this
have an
burning
opinion if you don't
sensation.
see? You have to go and see everything, unless if you want an opinion.
Well, and this is coming back to the kids when I'm given. Sometimes they give me a few shifts of a weekend to sit and watch these kids come in and do their speeches, and I've got to say whether they can come in or not, which is crazy. some of them you say, so who's that speech by? And they go, oh, fuck, can I just go outside and get it? I've forgotten. And it's not because nerves may play a factor, but sometimes they just don't know.
Know your shit.
They don't know the play, or you ask them about the rest of the character and they don't know because they've just read the speech.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I remember, I'm not saying one has to be like me, Craig. I'm not saying that I am the exemplary actor. I'm not saying that. What I am saying is that I think there's certain things that if you want something bad enough, you have to work to get them. And the detail of sometimes surpassing the play of the playwright you're auditioning with. You sometimes know the body of work of the playwright.
Yeah.
I'd be so impressed by that if you came in and suddenly had something else up your sleeve.
It's kind of day one stuff, really, if you think about it. Like, I was talking to a producer the other day, and he was talking with a director who was casting this film. And the director said, look, let's just leave the script there and let's talk about the character.
Yeah.
And the actor was pretty green, went, oh, I haven't really thought about the character, I've just kind of learnt the lines. Well, you're going arse about tit there, mate, because start there and build up, surely. But how realistic are you with the students that come in? Do you talk to them?
Sometimes. They have an interview part which takes place after they've auditioned for us, and that's with someone else. So I don't get too into their personal lives. But one thing you do know is that you know talent when you see it. You really do. And you know, I saw a final year show the other day at a drama school that will be unnamed, and you know style when you see it. You know when someone has style. The last play I did, I'd watch in admiration every night as a fellow actor opened this bottle of champagne and had to make sure that he shaked it and tried to get the top off. The cork wouldn't undo, and then on a particular line, you've got it pops, and then you've got your laugh. And he's going against what he's saying has nothing to do with opening this bottle of champagne.
Yeah.
And it's very funny. And this actor, I'd watch in admiration at his style and panache, because that didn't just happen. He practiced that. That was practice.
Yeah.
And that style. And that's something when you're watching a final year drama school show, you see the people who have got it, and style I'm talking about.
Yeah.
And that can be it's terribly exciting. I get really excited by that.
Yeah, I bet.
Yeah.
Just going back to Lambda, because we haven't really discussed your time there. Did you feel... Because I've spoken to a lot of people, and some people said, yeah, I really found my home there. I really found my tribe. I found my people. I found a place where I felt at last I fitted. And then I've also spoken to some people who went, you know what? I still felt like a fucking outsider for the whole 3 years. Or I didn't feel accepted.
I felt accepted, and I was quite ferocious when I was at Lambda.
I'm not surprised.
I had gone there from Middlesex University, and I'd applied to Mountview, and I got into Mountview, but it was round about the days of the you had to get a Dada award, and they wouldn't give me one. And I was going to do musical theatre, so I would have been a West End Wendy. My life would have been different. And then I applied to Central, and I remember being intimidated by the fact that there were gold door handles on the front of Central's building.
Yeah.
And
So there's a lot of the names of the people and the
yeah,
steps.
yeah. Even though looking back, I didn't really want to go to Central. But I was intimidated because of the gold door handles. And again, that comes attached to shame. The idea of where I come from. And someone like me, you don't go to places like this. What? And then I applied to the Lambda, and from at the beginning when I applied and got in, it's one of the most beautiful things that's ever happened in my life, because I auditioned and it went well. I remember doing East is East, Carndon's East is East.
Right.
And I connected with this speech that this guy is saying to his brother, and he's the religious brother who sympathizes with his dad.
Yeah.
And he's saying to his brother that, I don't want that out there, that world out there, that's alien to me, that world out there. And he wants his father's life, and he sees it as pure and beautiful and not something to be mocked and laughed at like his brother's mocking. And I did that, and I did the old speech that everyone whacks out, which Edgar King Lear. And then I sung an Ivor Novello song called I Can Give You the Starlight.
Right.
And I remember them looking at me like, hey, what the fuck is that? And I was called back a week later, and Peter James, the principal, got me to do what I did again, because he didn't see it the week before. Yeah. And I remember saying to him, I said, I've not got a great deal of skill, but that's why I want to come. And he's like, I think you've got a great deal of skill. He said, do you want to come? I said, well, yeah. He said, good. And the next day I got a phone call, and they let me in. So I didn't even do what they do normally. They give you a recall where you go and work with some people, like who might be in the rest of your year. You'll work with other students. I missed that. It was just me. And
how old were you, Danny?
I was 20. I went to uni at 18. I got into Lambda at 21, so I was 21.
21.
And I think being from a minority background, working class, that was obviously a big thing. Drama schools are in competition with each other. Yeah. They want to nab people before other people get them. And I did that first term at Lambda feeling slightly smug, because I was like, well, they really want me here. That's amazing. Not telling anyone else this, but in my mind, it's a feeling of, well, they like you.
Yeah.
By the end of that first term, two teachers who really disliked me, they petitioned to give me a warning to chuck me out of the school.
Why did they dislike you?
Because first of all, I didn't normally. You'd audition in front of them at the recall stage.
Right.
I had to pass
you
that.
bypassed that, right?
They were fucking fuming. So
just had to hold that grudge.
But also, I was a mouthy little fucker, as I said. So they'd ask us to do stuff. I'd want to know why. Not why am I doing it, but I always had lots of questions.
Because that's what children do. They never take things at face value. They always ask those questions because they're inquisitive and they need to know.
But in a movement class with, I won't say her name, but someone that comes from the Royal Ballet, who's then head of movement at Lambda at the time, they just want you to get on with it and want you to do it. And I was like, no. And the physical theatre teacher at the time that Lambda had, a guy called Mark, we just totally didn't get on. But a lot of students didn't get on with him. But right. It was a complete clash because he was one of these guys from Lecoq and had one way of doing something, and if you didn't like it, it'd drag you up from the floor and get you to do it again. Physically, couldn't happen now. And
there was lots of things that couldn't happen now.
Totally. And So I remember them saying at the end of the first term, does what he does very, very well, but it's not our style. And I was devastated. I remember going home for Christmas and feeling like, fuck, they're going to chuck me out. They're giving me all the money to come here. Lambda are, and then...
so you got a scholarship? I was going to ask.
I wouldn't have been able to go.
You wouldn't be able to go.
It wouldn't, again, that wouldn't happen now, where you're a second degree student. If you've got one degree, they don't help you out anymore.
Yeah.
Whereas Peter James at that school, he was like a godfather to me. And Peter James, who used to run the Lyric Hammersmith years and years and years and years back. And he was so supportive of me. And during my training, you don't have much to do with the principal and the senior staff in the first year. But by the second year, he was sort of rooting for me. And the staff that I didn't get along with, I learnt simply that what I do, not everyone's going to like. What I say, not everyone's going to like. But there's something that I needed to do while I was there, and that was learn to play the game. And that's something that I don't do necessarily that well. And by learn to play the game, I mean there's certain moments where I would just learn to bite my tongue and think, mate, you're actually a cunt. I despise you. Or you've just done that to that student. That's unforgivable. How you've humiliated them in front of these people for your own personal pleasure. There was lots of that.
You were still that boy in school. You're still that boy.
Absolutely, totally. And
do you think you were made to grow up quicker, Danny? You know,
when I was a kid?
Yeah, because with your dad being the way he was, did you feel that you were intentionally or unintentionally made to be the man of the house?
No, oh God, no. I wanted to be man of my own house. I didn't want to be the man of someone else's house. I just wanted to get the fuck out of there, which is ironic,
considering
where I'm now. But I also feel that being back, I keep coming back to this as an excuse, but there's certain jobs that I just wouldn't be able to do, Craig, if I feel like I wasn't there. Which is strange, because there's certain jobs, acting jobs, that I was offered an acting job the other day. I was like, I don't want to do that. I'm not taking that. I don't want to do that. And then I wait, and a few months go by, and then something that I absolutely want to do comes along. I said to Ruth Wilson the other day, maybe I need to sell my body while I'm in my prime. I got that response. I don't know. I think the made to grow up thing, possibly, because there was a lot of someone else's experience of childhood being enforced onto their child.
Yeah. It's just interesting that it keeps coming back that you stand up for injustices, not only for yourself but for other people as well. And you were doing that at high school, and you're still doing that at drama school, and I believe you're probably still doing that now.
Yeah. Oh, I'm falling out left, right and centre all the time with people I know, or friends on Facebook, or fucking wherever the fuck, because I have to speak out, because we've only got one voice. We have it.
Yeah.
It's ours to use, because some people can't.
Or don't, or won't.
Don't, won't, would like to, but are scared.
Yeah.
Definitely that's what Act for Change came from.
Which I want to come on to.
We'll come on to a bit, but I think the thing that you've just touched upon, the having to grow up thing, I got this residing memory in my head of when I was a kid. I was about 4 or 5. And my mum bought me a flick-flack, a watch, and I remember this little advert on TV.
Yes.
And I remember watching this advert, and it was like, flick-flack, they're water-resistant, flick-flack. And I was like, Mum, I want a flick-flack! And I got a flick-flack. And I remember being so happy with this watch. So happy. And my father, who would come in and out and in and out and in and out of our lives, usually at the weekend he'd turn up. He'd be a weekend father. I wouldn't know what he was doing during the week.
Yeah.
But I remember, I think that sex between my parents was quite a big weapon between them. And they used it to keep each other into their lives.
Right, okay.
When I was young, they were, like, thinking about it now, they were both fucking hot, my parents.
Yeah.
And it sounds weird for a child to say that, but looking back at photos, they were. And
I don't think that sounds weird. I think you can look back at photos of your parents and go, do you know what?
gosh, yeah.
Yeah. You've got all that going on there.
I think that sex was definitely a factor that kept each other kept one another in the other's lives. And it's taken me years and years of therapy and psychoanalysis to kind of get to the point of, oh, Danny, that's sad because it should have been you.
Right.
But I remember waking up one Sunday morning and my dad being there. I'm in the kitchen and my mum would make like big breakfast and, you know, we're a family because we're together again before he goes off for another week. Where the fuck, I don't know.
Yeah.
And I remember like showing him my flip-flap and he said, Danny, do you know the difference between AM and PM? And I must have been about 4 or 5, I think 4 or 5. I just started school.
Yeah.
And I was made to feel at that point that there were kids who were much brighter than me, and I acknowledge that. Usually kids from better homes. And I said no. And he said, do you not know the difference between AM and PM? And I said no. And he got up and he walked out. And I remember that made me feel so ashamed. So ashamed.
I think that would make anybody feel
and
ashamed.
I think it was like a catalyst, this moment that I remember, for feeling like I am not going to let anybody make me feel worthless.
Yeah.
I will not allow it to happen. And I realised as school went on, junior school, high school, there were always people. There's always people that are smarter than you.
Always.
There's always people that are more talented than you. I remember Lauryn Hill saying this amazing thing when she was interviewed, when she wrote her first and last album, The Miseducation.
Yeah.
And I remember being in my 20s and seeing this interview on MTV, and she said, she's like, there's kids 20, 30, 40 more times talented than I am. I just got lucky. And I remember thinking, fuck, you're not saying that to be humble. She's saying it because she comes from a place where, there was the church.
Yeah.
And we know what America and the church means to black people. And I absolutely believe Lauryn Hill when she says there were probably people 20, 30, 40 more times talented. And there were definitely, when I was growing up, definitely people who were more than I was. And so skilled and adept when it came to sciences and maths. I was awful, terrible at maths and science. I got Fs. I was terrible. But probably because I was too busy sticking up for everyone. But
isn't it funny you're saying about just taking, for one example, people who are smarter than you, right? And there's always people smarter than... Where's the next one? But it's about... If you're in somebody's company who is smarter than you, it's about how they make you feel. And if they don't make you feel that you're less than them,
I totally, yeah.
You just don't.
I totally agree with you. Yeah, it's the I come back to the Stephen Fry thing. Like I've been in rooms with Stephen Fry where we're having a conversation, and I feel like, I'm talking to you about this thing, and you probably could write a thesis on it, but you have the charm and the humility to not make me feel small.
Or lesser.
Worthless, insignificant, inconsequential. You're a good person.
Which is what
I've definitely had that.
It stems down to, you're a good person. Are you a good person?
I think so. And I struggle. I mean, you can tell from this conversation, I struggle.
We all struggle.
I struggle every day, but it's...
But at least we can be honest and say that we struggle. I think that's the key to it, surely, I think. But it's all a personal journey. It's a personal path, isn't it?
I think it is. I think I know I don't like everything that I know about myself. I know that I'll never necessarily be particularly content. Because I'm always thinking about, oh no, I should be doing this, or I should do that. Or, I'm never satisfied.
Well, I don't know any actor or artist that really is truly satisfied. And I think if you get to that point, then maybe you should go do something else.
It's a constant quest. Totally, I think. But
I think that's what makes things exciting. The constant quest, the constant need for more or for change.
Mulling that one over.
Mull away. Tell me about your third year at drama school.
Oh, God.
It's a tricky year for everybody.
Yeah, mine was particularly tricky because who am I to say it was particularly tricky? Mine was bloody brilliant. It was a brilliant last year. It wasn't tricky, but something tricky happened that stayed with me. And like everything in my life, the most awful, fucking terrible, tragic things are the things that tend to stay with you rather than the lovely things. At the beginning of the third year, I got an agent straight away off of my showcase, a very good agent who represents like brilliant actors, and I was so honoured. I really wanted to be with this guy, and I signed with him, and God, so. This isn't arrogance. You have to understand, this isn't arrogant. There were a couple of people who wanted to sign me, and one of them, she's brilliant, but something told me, go with this guy. And I sit there in front of him in his office, and he's got all these accolades around him and all these posters of what the fuck his clients have been in and whatnot. And I made him say what it was about me that he wanted to sign. Like, what was it? And
I think that's
no, but people don't do it. No one in my year.
Legitimate question.
No one does it though, Craig. No one does. So my people in my year who I deeply love and respect, they'd be like, "You did what? What? You just what?"
Because why I say it's legitimate is, you know your strengths, right? You know your strengths as an actor. One knows their strengths.
Yeah, otherwise you're bugged.
So if you ask that question and the agent says, "Oh well, because X, Y, and Z," and you go, "Oh, but my strengths are A, B, and C," so you're seeing me in a completely different light.
Totally.
That's why I feel it's legitimate.
So it was. It was also something that comes back to the speaking out and the injustice and other people, and I provoke a lot, and I feel like that's somehow what I don't believe in any god. I'm not particularly spiritual, but I think I was sent here to provoke people, and myself, and
And to challenge yourself.
And to challenge myself and other people. And I said to this guy, this agent, Mr. Big Agent guy, whose name I won't say, because we'll then find out what happened. I said, so why? And he said, you've got timing. He said, and that's so key and important. I was like, oh, okay, right, thank you, thanks. And he said, he said, Danny, I see no reason why, for example, with classical, there's no reason why you couldn't play, like, for example, like Horatio and I said, I see no reason why I couldn't play Hamlet.
Right.
And that was a provocation to him. And there was an understanding that the tools in my colouring box, I was like, I don't want to be limited to just using this little stencil over here. I'm going to use it all.
Yeah.
And he got that, I thought. And the final year went well, because I did a Linda LaPlante. I remember Sam Jones getting me in for Ed Hall. I'm at drama school still. Ed Hall offers me a job to go around the world with Propeller Theatre Company playing Bianca and Taming of the Shrew. I was like, that's for a year. I didn't want to go around the world for a year.
Yeah.
And it's with men. And I don't want to be with a group of like testosterone-filled men. They're all. I know them. I did my research. I always do my research before I turn down a job or take a job, and necessarily that doesn't help, because.
Give me an example of when you say research.
So I did my research. I knew a casting director when I was in the final year, and I got in touch and I said, so you tell me about this Propeller, because I know what critically is said of Propeller, but I want you to tell me, because you're a casting director, and we've sort of like had a few chats. I'm still at drama school. And so
confident, Danny.
And
we're a drama school graduate.
So this casting director said to me, who I'm still friends with, by the way, I'm still very good friends with, and it's interesting because at the time he was a casting director, he was a casting assistant. He's now like
huge,
in charge of one of our most important establishments.
Yeah.
So I said, so what are they like? And he said, well, a lot of them are all straight. He said, it's quite blokey. And I was like, well, I can't do that for a year away from home. And I know that Philip Larkin quote about I wouldn't mind going to China for the day if I could come back at tea time. That's really what I felt. And I'm like, at the time, so I started when I was 21, 22, so I'm 23, and I turned the job down. So I'm in my final year, turned Taming the Shrew down with Propeller, and everyone just thought I was an absolute arrogant arsehole for doing that.
Because it's a long time in anybody's company.
But you have to remember that when you're a drama school student and you're just leaving, you
want it all.
You want it all, and you should just. There's a sense of, well, you just take it.
Yeah.
You take what you're given. But I believed in myself so much. I believed in my talent and my. I remember calling up Daniel Evans, who I knew because I knew quite a few people, even when I was at drama school. I remember calling up Daniel Evans because I knew him from when I was an usher at the Royal Court. You
worked at when you were at Lambda, didn't you?
I ushered for 5 years during Middlesex and Lambda.
Right.
And that, I always call that my biggest training, the Royal Court, because it gave me the ability to meet all these people.
All sorts of different backgrounds.
All different backgrounds, and watch plays that were crap, brilliant. I remember watching a play called Blood with Tom Hardy and Nicholas Le Provost and 4 rows in the Royal Court in that main theatre. 4 rows each night filled up, the rest of the whole theatre empty. Empty. They were dying on their arse. And because the Royal Court, it's not about that.
Yeah.
it was about form and the playwright's experience and their progression, not the actors.
Yeah.
And so all of that really excited me. I saw a number with Gambon and Daniel Craig. I remember seeing that 37 times. They're like, "Oh, Danny, you don't want to go in there and watch it again?" I'm like, "Yeah, please."
Yeah, you do.
I do.
I remember seeing that.
Just let me watch it. And so that thing of, you have to have the illness that I was talking about, the Peter Gill thing. So in the final year, I turned that down. The Taming of the Shrew, they all think, well, that's ridiculous. And Daniel Evans said this brilliant thing to me, because he was going through his own thing, his own genesis from becoming an actor to a director. He said, your greatest power is to say no.
Daniel Evans is so right. He's so right.
That's the only power we have. And I remember it so clearly, and I was like, yes, absolutely, yes, key.
It's a huge thing that when somebody tells you that, or you, that unlocks in your mind. You go, yeah, that is so true.
You don't need permission to get to that point of realising that. Because it's just, And so I didn't do it,
But how great that you did your research into it before just saying no for all sorts of reasons.
But I also had this steely belief that I'm going to go and I'm going to do something. And it might not be straight away, I don't know. And then in the final year, so I go back to drama school after doing Trial and Retribution for Ed Hall. I beg, because it's the final year, everyone's worried about, they want to be cast as themselves or closer to themselves, so agents will see them. I'm already got my agent. I don't care. I want to play away from myself. I'm a character actor. That's what I want to do. I beg to be in Dancing at Lunasa. Beg, because I know that when I get out here in the real world, no motherfucker is going to put me, Danny Lee Wynter, in a Brian Frill play. Otherwise, maybe they'll let me do it on the radio, but they're not going to let me do a Brian Frill play.
Certainly not that one.
Certainly not Dancing at Lunasa. And so I asked Peter James if I can do that play and work with a certain director, and he makes it happen. I play Father Jack. Can you imagine? I play Father Jack. No. And so from the off, I walk into that room, and this is my final year, and this director in my final year, I walk in, and he looked up and he was sort of shocked, because there's two Dannys. There were two Dannys in my year.
Right.
The other one was white. And I walked in, and he was just sort of, I could see on his face, he's sort of glazed over. He was just, what? Oh, come and sit down. And so I went and sat down, and I could see from the off, he had a problem.
Yeah.
And this play, this Brian Frill play, is one of his favourite plays. He feels the same about this play as I feel about The Seagull. Right. And so he throughout the whole thing, gave me a rough ride. And it's never ever been that rough with the director. And I've clashed with directors. I've loved directors, but I've also clashed with directors. And this director, he disliked me intensely. And it was really important to have this lesson in my final year, because it was just real. And he kept continuously provoking me and challenging me and trying to get me to rise to the bait. He's a drama centre person.
I'm with you. Okay.
And I was like, okay, right, let's do this.
So you being you rose to that challenge.
I was trying not to.
Right. Oh, really?
I was trying not to.
The restraints were on.
Yeah, I'm really trying not to. And also, I love this play. And I love the opportunity that I've been given to play Father Jack.
Yeah, of course you asked for this.
And my Irish accent is just off the scale in terms of bizarre.
Off the scale, good. Off the
bizarre.
scale,
Because it's like, because Father Jack has gone from, he's a missionary working in Uganda who comes back to Ireland, to Donegal.
Yeah.
So he's sort of lost his accent, but he's still got Donegal, but there's bits of, he's like picking up bits of the lingo. so whatever I was doing, it was not what this guy wanted. And so his resentment of me was building up, because you get 3 weeks to rehearse a play at drama school, so it's building up. My resentment of him is building up.
I went to the third week now.
We're in the third week. And then I remember quite clearly, and this is one of the biggest lessons of the final year that I ever had. One day the call goes out, and for some reason, I don't get the correct call time. Rather than coming in the morning for the tech at 9 o'clock, I come in at 9:30. The reason for this is I had one of those Nokias.
Yeah.
And for some reason, the message, they changed the call time in the evenings. I walk in, the cast's waiting there. It's always clear to everyone else that he doesn't like me. And, oh no, that's it. I'm walking to school for the 9:30 to get to this tech. And I pick up this message on my Nokia. Danny Lee Wynter, where are you? You fucking bastard. You fucking, like, just like, what the, whoa, what the, like talking about saying all these awful things. And I'm just like, what? What? And I don't understand what's happened. If the call time's changed, I wasn't told about it. I don't know how that's happened.
Yeah.
I'm never late for rehearsals, ever. So, I'm late for everything else. But I get there, and everyone's sat there, and I walk in, and I just start, everything comes out. I start screaming at him.
So nearly 3 weeks of...
3 weeks of rage, pent-up rage. And like, you know, and I'm like, who the do you think you're, like, what the hell? And he starts back at me with exactly the same force and ferocity. Everyone in the room, the girls, brilliant girls playing the sisters, they all leave. And the room empties, and they stand outside, the doors are wide open, and they hear everything.
Oh my God.
And he said, you're going to have a terrible, terrible lesson to learn. And I said, yeah, and what's that? And he said, it's already hard enough for black actors out there as it is. He said, you'll make it so much worse for yourself. So much worse for yourself. The fact that he brought my race into
my
it.
God.
But there was a truth, though, Craig, in that, because he was absolutely right in saying that when I get out there, it is so much worse for black actors. And actually, what this motherfucker was saying was something that nobody else in the 3 years of the training acknowledged. Not once. That my journey was going to be so different from Harry Hayden Payton's, from Hugh Skinner's, from George Rainsford's, from every other person.
Yeah.
And nobody ever acknowledged that.
Why do you think that? Why do you think they didn't
Because
say
they
that?
didn't know how to handle it. In the same way that growing up, my mother is a white woman who doesn't know what to do with my afro hair. So it's like, what do you do? We're not black.
Yeah.
How do we... I'm not black. I identify as mixed race.
Yeah.
But I find it really... It was a really powerful thing to hear this man say those words, that it's already hard enough out there for black people, black actors as it is. They have a terrible, terrible reputation for being late. He said that to me. Yeah. And he said it to me, and I remember thinking, you piece of shit. You piece of shit. And as I stood there arguing back, I am becoming so enraged. I'm shouting at him. I'm screaming his name. I'm saying, I just keep repeating over and over again, because he's not listening to me. I keep saying, you're not God. You think you are. That's why you're here.
Yeah.
Not out there.
Yeah.
That's why you're right here. You think you're God. Those people outside the door these brilliant, brilliant fucking actresses. Some of them who've left the profession, who've not worked since. One of them, thank fucking God, is brilliant, Nadia Albina. She's working in the West End doing a show for Daniel Evans. But these brilliant actresses are outside the door listening to this, and I'm like, you've tried to make them think that you're some sort of demigod, and you're not. But I'm not saying this as calmly as I am now to you. I'm screaming, and as I'm screaming,
There's
it's that
still
thing
intensity to it, though.
Oh my God. So you know that thing of when you get drunk, when you're pissed, and you go back to who really, you're the closest that your voice is. So when I'm drunk at the end of the night, I sound like, seriously, like Sinead Matthews, one of my best friends. At the end of a night, I hear her voice, at 4 o'clock in the morning. It becomes more and more Coventry.
Yeah.
You hear it, like in her voice.
Yeah.
I become more and more Essex. It's less how I'm speaking now. And in my rage, I couldn't give a fuck how I sounded. And you know what he said to me? He said, "That's it. That's who you are."
So stop pretending to be this.
Basically.
Oh,
basically.
God.
And that was him. And, yeah. And I remember it was really vicious. And then I got my job. I was out for 4 weeks and I landed on my feet. I got this Polyakov. Yeah. I'm the lead with Maggie Smith, Michael Gambon. I don't know which side my bread's buttered on, but it's this baptism of fire because Polyakov is this extraordinary character, as you probably know. And I remember going back to watch the final year's show at Lambda round about that time when I'm filming, and he sees me in the toilet, this director, and he says, "Hey, you've got this wonderful job. Congratulations, Danny." And just walks off. But I've never really seen him since, but my point is that it was a big, big lesson working with him in my final year, because people will not always be happy for you.
Oh, no.
And that was a big lesson. And another big lesson to come from it was that my journey was going to be different. Because for 3 years, I have, as a character actor, and that's what I truly believe I am, I don't believe that I've got friends who are extraordinary at showing you, they're of doing nothing. And move me to tears. I know that I'm a character actor, and the extremities of exploring character are what I enjoy. And so in Cellmates, I was playing a KGB Russian spy, who has 3 fat daughters, and so not close to me at all. And that's what I bask and relish in. And I think knowing that for 3 years you can play Chabutikin in the Three Sisters, or I'm playing a 12-year-old one week in a Simon Stevens play, it's a gift.
Yeah.
It's a gift that they get you to extend, if you're lucky, your range. Try to make you see what you can do and what you can't do, and what's for you and what not for you.
Well, that's interesting you say that, because I was going to say before, you seem to know your strengths, certainly in that last year at drama school. Did you know your weaknesses then?
Yeah, totally.
Wow.
Well, I remember writing when I was looking for drama schools to go to, I remember writing to Ben Whishaw and Sinead Matthews, and he was playing Stanley in The Birthday Party.
Yeah.
And she was playing Grusha in The Caucasian Chalk Circle. They're both in their final year. And one of the things that cemented in my mind while watching these beautiful actors, they are beautiful actors.
Yeah.
And one of the things that cemented was that they do what they do really well because there's an idiosyncrasy of themselves, and that is so important, so vital.
Yeah.
And it is the thing that keeps me coming back, because this strange, unidentifiable thing. And I think it's knowing yourself, and I don't know what I'm trying to say. I think that I knew that there's so much still that I want to do, for example, but I know that I probably I'm not going to play some romantic lead in something.
You don't know that?
Well, no, because I don't want to. Right. And so it's probably because I'm not interested in that. They've never been the actors that I was interested in. Those yeah.
That's fine, because you're making a choice there. You're trying to get back some control and go, well, that's actually not what I wanted to do. But that's positive, surely.
I think so.
Are you still learning, Danny?
Totally.
Do you still learn from every job?
Every job. Last job I did, I was like, but it fills me with terror. So the last job,
That's a good thing,
at Cellmates, the last job I did at Hampstead, I had to learn Russian. I was like, well, I didn't audition for the job. Ed called me up because he'd worked with me before. He said, do you want to do this job? I was like, yeah, okay. And well, I didn't just say, yeah, okay, because I'm not that simple, as you know. So
I can't imagine you ever saying, yeah, all right, I'll do it.
Yeah, yes, person. No. So I read it, and I was like, what the fuck? You want me to do? I've got to do a Russian accent. What? And the irony is, by the end of the job, I had these two characters. One was a write-on journalist for the New Statesman who wants justice.
Yeah.
And he is from New Money with a posh girlfriend. They're probably like living in what now we'd deem as like the Islington or Crouch End Brigade. But this play's set in the 60s, and I was like, oh, I could do that with my eyes closed. I could do that. I know myself, I could do that.
Yeah.
This other character, Russian KGB spy, I was like, oh, God, what am I going to do? I'm going to be a joke. Like, it's a very, very funny character, but I'm going to be a joke.
Yeah.
And ironically, what happened was I had a riot with the Russian. I loved him. And the most difficult time I had was playing the journalist from a New Statesman who I thought I could do with my eyes closed.
That's so interesting.
I thought I'd just do a sort of, who's very righteous, self-important and very... I thought I'd do an impression of a very famous social political activist of our time right now, whose name I won't mention, but he's very Labour supporter and Guardian person. Yeah. You know what I mean? I thought I'm just going to mimic. I'm just going to do an impression of this gentleman, and it just died on its arse, and I just had to keep every night trying to come at it from a completely different angle.
I want to bring up something, and I think you'll be all right with me saying it because you said it yourself.
I am gay, Craig.
That's after all this time.
Yeah.
You've said it yourself that you feel that people may say you're a bit of a tricky fish.
Difficult, I think, yeah. Yeah.
Does that link in, obviously, with...
I've lost jobs because of it, I know that.
With auditions and your relationship with casting directors.
Definitely.
Have you been told by people who love you and look after you to toe the line or rein it in a bit?
Yes. Yes.
How do you feel about that? Does that make you feel that they're trying to
Protect me.
well, not only protect you, but not make you you?
It's a...
You know, what is it that...
I think it's a difficult commodity, isn't it? Because when someone tries to make you less you, your instinct is to become more you. And mine is, definitely. So I mentioned at some point when we've been talking, I mentioned about Facebook. I sometimes, I'll post a link to my Facebook friends of something that's just happened, and I'll comment on it of what I feel, but not in a worthy way, but usually in a wry kind of taking the piss.
Yeah.
And sometimes people get it. Sometimes they don't. But I'm being irreverent. If you can't get it, I'm not going to lose sleep. I'm not going to waste my energy trying to make you understand. But I've lost friendships because of what I believe or wanting to be me. And sometimes I have to step back and... Someone the other day I made a comment about a director.
You name that director?
No.
Right, okay.
But it's a director that a very good friend of mine has, in the last year, played a very significant character for. And I don't particularly feel good things for this director.
Okay.
Because I could go into detail, but there's no point.
No.
So, they're very mean about other people in the rehearsal room. And I dislike that. And he'd never say these things, this director, to other people's faces. I don't like that, because there's a place for it. It's definitely not in the rehearsal room.
No.
And so I mocked something quite publicly about this director without naming them. And my friend, who's worked for them, was sort of taken aback or upset by that.
And they confronted you about that?
Yeah. And so I was like, I'm not doing this on social fucking media. So I just left it. And he called me up and we spoke about it. And
was it resolved?
Absolutely resolved. We love each other and we're going to go and get pissed next week. But I find it... There are so many brilliant people. There are so many brilliant people in the industry. And there are also so many people who, for want of a better word, I want to find a really eloquent word, but I just keep thinking dickheads. I really wanted to find an eloquent word. And they don't need to be. They really don't need to be. Particularly when they've acquired the power that they particularly wanted.
Well, that's it, isn't it? With the power comes...
Yeah. And then, of course, I retaliate. And I'm like, oh, Jesus, you're not Peter Brook. You're not inventing the wheel. Fuck off.
Yeah.
You've done a couple of successful plays that kids that haven't seen the Worcester Group or whatever, that, Jesus Christ, calm down. Anyway...
And when you say you've lost jobs over it, because if you can restore or mend a friendship, which you have done, you can't do anything that significant if you've lost a job. So if you've lost a job, that's going to have ramifications with your relationships, possibly with the casting directors or the director, or maybe with your agent.
Oh my God, yes. Yes. Totally. I think, well, for example, as we're talking, I'm really realising it's coming across that I'm a tricky fish. I think it's that I don't compromise.
I don't think it does.
It's because I don't compromise. I don't think it's that I'm necessarily a tricky fish, because I know people who are.
I only say tricky fish because I know that you've called yourself that.
Yeah.
I only use that.
No, I wouldn't call myself. I don't think I would call myself. I probably have, but I think I call myself that saying what other people have said about me, as opposed to I am.
Okay, yeah, I understand. But it's. Define tricky. It's
Maggie Smith, Anthony Sher. Let's just name names. Let's go out.
I know, but sometimes people want to give things a label because, certain things didn't go my way, and they put a slight spanner in the works for that, or they question something, so therefore they're that.
Mm. I think fucking hell. One of the biggest misconceptions that I think people will have about me, if they fucking know me at all, I love when younger people who are just like, they're babies in the industry in their early 20s, and you're at a party and talking to them, are you an actor? And you're like, yeah, I'm an actor. So, one of the biggest misconceptions, I think, is that I say things or do things out of malice or to be harsh, and it's not. And I'm going to use an example. So in 2009, I auditioned for this play at the Young Vic, and I went in and I didn't love the play. I really, really wanted to meet the writer, who I thought was so special, and I really wanted to meet the director. I didn't think I was right for the part, just didn't, and I went in anyway. And I know now I wouldn't do that. I'd be wasting their time.
And yours.
And mine. I went in, and we're sat there and we're talking about it, and they're asking me what I think, and I'm expressing my shock that you thought I could do this character. He's this young, hopeful, wide-eyed boy who's sort of full of optimism, and I know that creeps in, well, just act, Danny, but at my core is not that. Talking about someone like David Oyelowo, who's someone that operates out of faith and hope.
Yeah.
I know that I operate from despair.
Right.
So, and it sounds, maybe it would sound sad to some people, because it's like, well, why would you want to box yourself by that? But I'm like, no, because I know there's a series of characters that I need to be playing in Chekhov or Tennessee Williams, but with this part and this play, I'm just... It's a good play, but I just don't feel that I do this part well. And I said that. And that casting director never forgave me.
She never forgave your
Never
honesty.
forgave me. My honesty. She never brought me in. Ever again. When I was right for something 5 years later, my agent at the time said, what about Danny? She said, well, no, the last time I brought Danny in for something, which was the only time, motherfucker, she said Danny thought that he wasn't right for the part, and that overruled my judgment.
So therefore she took
offence
right.
Personally. Yeah. Miss casting director who's very good at her job, which she actually is, but it wasn't a dig at her. It wasn't. I wasn't even thinking that. I was just thinking, at my core of who I am, I don't think I'm that part.
And also, it's a discussion between yourself and the writer and the director.
Yeah. And it's your play. And I also want you to know that I'm here and I love what you do, yeah. Mr. Writer. Please remember me. And I sort of from that experience, realised that it doesn't work like that. But yeah, only recently, last year, she's casting a play I know that I'm absolutely right for. I bend over backwards and jump through hoops to get seen for this play that she's casting.
Oh, no.
I was getting no. I had to go to the director. I had to go to friends of the director. I had friends giving me emails of people. I'm like, no, I can't. That's so Glenn Close. I can't do that. But I did, because I was like, and I remember, again, all these years later, just before Christmas, I said to Daniel Evans, I said, no, she's not going to let me in. He said, well, just write to the director. And he's someone I always ask for advice from.
We need those people.
Totally. Absolutely. And he said, he said, just write to the director. That's what I did with John Caird for Peter Pan. Just write. And so I just wrote. And
you never thought about writing her a letter?
Got in the room.
You did get in the room?
I got in the room.
And was she there?
Oh, she was reading with me. Not only was she there, she was reading with me.
Raging with you?
Reading.
Was she raging, though?
Reading and raging together at the same time while I've prepared these 6 or 7 scenes that I've learnt off by heart, which I also now, like, one of the things when you really, really want something, Craig, in theatre, don't necessarily learn it. Do not necessarily learn it.
You don't want to get stuck.
Because if you are learning it, really, for your own ego. And I wanted it so bad. Like, I would have... oh, my God. I would have sold Sinead Matthews. Like, I would have...
Oh, don't do that.
I would have, like... No, I wanted it desperately. And it didn't happen. But... valuable lesson, do not necessarily feel that you need to know the lines. I'm dyslexic, and so one of the things I always do, I try to learn the lines.
Of course.
But yeah, anyway, I got to meet a director that I greatly admire, who actually, when I was at the Royal Court, I'm jumping all over the place, aren't I? When I was at the Royal Court, and I was an usher for 5 years, when I was at Middlesex and I had to write my dissertation, I'll just say who it is, and it'll be obvious what the play is and what the part was, and knowing who the casting director was. Fine. So, when I was at Middlesex and I was ushering for the Royal Court, Stephen Daldry was doing a number, and I remember I was just obsessed with Billy Elliot, because it was like, what a beautiful story. What a beautiful story. What a beautiful film this man has made.
Yeah.
I'm not familiar with his work. I'm 19 years old. I don't know his history of the Gate Theatre and what actually that man did to try to rebuild the Royal Court as we now know it. The sacrifices that were made to get the funding during a period in cultural decline where politically they were not helping rebuild buildings. That man went all out and got the Royal Court its money because of Daldry. And I'm in this room all these years later auditioning for him for the lead in this play. So my confidence hasn't really gone that much, my self-belief. I've chased that. And I remind him that when I was an usher at the Royal Court, when I was at Middlesex, he gave me an hour and a half of his time because I said after one performance of a number, Stephen, I'm writing a dissertation at the moment about colourblind casting and race and UK theatre. Would you mind doing an interview with me? He's like, yeah, sure, like, yeah. I'll just ask for my number. Like, who do I ask for your number? I didn't say that to him, but only when he left, I thought, well, like, where did I get your number? Royal Court aren't just going to give it to me, some usher. I went upstairs. Diane Borgia was in the office upstairs. Great lady, and she was the manager at the time and of the theatre. And she gave me his number, and I went to his office. And I should prefix this. This isn't a Me Too story. So I went to his office, and it's on Shaftesbury Avenue, and his secretary shows me in. And we have a chat, as we are now, Craig. We have a chat about British theatre, about black people in British theatre, about class in British theatre, because I'm writing this dissertation.
Yeah.
But my dissertation's like a year away, but I just want to get this interview now. And I've still got this tape in my mum's loft, and you can hear... I'm arguing with Stephen about these things. And saying, why is it all... Why constantly is privileged people, posh people, like that man in your play? I mean, he's brilliant, but he's like, who? Gambon? I'm like, yeah. And it's like, I remember he's screaming. I've got this tape, and he's shouting, are you crazy? He's a fucking docker. Like, he comes from... I didn't know any of this.
Right.
And again, it leads you back to that thing, know your shit. And... he was one of the people that made me know my shit. He said, if you're going to start talking about class, you need to go to someone like Harvey Granville Barker. You've got to go back to Joan Littlewood. You've got to go to all of these people. And this is what gets my goat. When people talk about now class, race, gender, brilliant people that are coming through being warriors for the cause, and... I commend them, but I want to say what everyone out there already knows, who will be listening to this knows, that the generation who are fighting now through activism to make things better, we were galvanised by social media. The people that came before us, Vanessa and Corinne Redgrave, Mona Hammond, Johnny Worthy... these people, Norman Bates, Norman Beaton, these people were fighting exactly the same fight that we're fighting right now. So I think the thing of know your heroes is so key and vital. Because you can't generalise and just say this thing's just happened. It's not. The people that made the Glasgow Sit, they gave that community of people tickets for a certain price or free. They started that. It's not a new thing.
No.
And I feel like those conversations, they've been around for years. We are lucky to be utilising social media at the moment, in this moment that we're at. And going to Daldry is someone that interview made me go away and know better.
But also, if you're going to
know
fight,
better,
know what you're talking about, know what you're fighting for.
Absolutely.
Danny, I do want to... I'm going to have to finish it. But I could stay here for another few hours talking to you, but I really, really want to end it with going back to...
He wants to end it.
I want to end it by going back to in that third week when you had that nuclear explosion of an argument with that director, and he said to you, oh, you think it's hard, but it's even more hard for a black actor, right? Do you think that argument was a tiny little core for you starting Act for Change?
Absolutely.
Right. I thought so, but I really want you to talk to me about Act for Change and maybe people who don't know about it, because it's such an important thing that you started.
Act for Change
I know you're reaching for your notes. I'd
I've
love
got statistics.
I'd love to some statistics.
You love some vital statistics. Remember that from The Big Breakfast? They used to do vital statistics, Denise Van Outen and Johnny Vaughan. Loved it. So Act for Change is a grassroots campaign, an umbrella organisation that was formed in 2014 because I came back from a date one night and I had been stood up, and I came back home and to my mother's, and I'd previously, the few months before, been working with Mark Rylance and Vanessa Redgrave. I was doing this production of Much Ado that got critically panned, but I was working with Redgrave. I became a very close friend and ally of Redgrave and love her with all my heart. And she was sort of this force in so many ways that made me go, what? There's no point just moaning about it in the pub. Do something.
Yeah.
And I came home after this date, early January 2014, not with Redgrave, with this guy who stood me up. And I turned on the TV and I saw this Where Drama Lives, ITV. And it was this house, and lots of people will remember the advert. And it was this house, sort of does these brilliant interior shots, sweeping. You've got like Helen Mirren walking down, and then you look up, and there's Anna Maxwell Martin darting about. You turn a corner, and suddenly there's like Rupert Penry Jones looking all hot and bothered, and like, and then actually in it you also had. You had John Thor, who's dead. But you had no black people.
Yeah.
And there was not one person who looked like me. There was very few women. It was mainly men. There was no one with a disability at all. And the advert ended, ITV, Where Drama Lives. So they're presumably assuming that drama in this country lives at ITV. And I've just travelled back to Essex on the Central Line on this tube, and I didn't see anyone on that tube in that advert. Not one. So I just thought, this is dodgy. And I called up the person I always call up. Surprised he hasn't blocked my number by now. Daniel Evans. And I was like, can you meet me for a drink? Yeah, of course. Meet for a drink. Show him this advert. And I said, so what do you think? And he was like, oh, it's beautiful. I said, no, it's not this beautiful. Like, look. He said, oh, yes. And he totally got it. And I emailed David Lan. I said, I need a space. And David gave me a space at the Young Vic.
Yeah.
I didn't even say what it was for.
Right.
And I called up some of my friends, my close friends, and people who I hadn't at the time in 2014 actually met, but knew of and knew that they were quite right on. So Daniel Evans and I sat in this room at the Young Vic. I may have said Old Vic. Young Vic.
No, you said Young Vic.
The Young Vic. And we sat there in this room, at the pod room upstairs.
Yeah.
And it was myself and Ruth Wilson and Daniel Evans and Andy Pryor, Cobner Holbrook Smith, who I didn't really know properly until then, but we became so close as a result of this.
Yeah.
Oni Yahura, brilliant actress Sharon Duncan Brewster.
Yeah.
And Matthew Exear and Stephanie Street. We sat in this room around a table. We were like, what are we going to do about this? Because this keeps happening, and it's what I call Cobner said, it's the consistent, convenient coincidence. Keeps happening.
Yeah.
Now we need action. So got Malcolm Sinclair, who's a friend of ours, to draft this letter. He sent it to ITV. Your man at ITV, who was the head of drama at the time, he agrees to come and talk to us. But we say, we want you to talk to us, but we want it to be like a debate. We want to invite like a few of our friends. What we don't say is that it's the packed Young Vic auditorium. We had a queue going around the block. And
so you publicised it?
We publicised the shit out of it. And we utilised all of our contacts, that group of people that I've just mentioned, as you can imagine, know people. So we called up lots of favours.
We all know that people talk.
People, yeah, totally. Maureen Lipman said, "Oh no, it's Bob Hoskins. It's good to talk." I don't know what Maureen Lipman said.
Anology.
Probably lots of things.
Anology.
Yeah, don't go there.
Anology.
Yeah, anology. But
So how was the debate?
And it was one of the most moving things that I've witnessed. I'm not even talking about me being a part of it. Forget that. Like, just seeing people come together at the Young Vic for this movement that they didn't quite know what it was going to be, but we'd got on this panel, we'd got Alison Owen. So Ruth called up Alison Owen. We got, I'd never even spoken to her before, but the woman that casts, is it Julie Crampsey, who casts these standards. We got an ex-artistic director of Grey Eye Theatre Company, a brilliant theatre company for performers with disabilities. Yeah. And I got Stephen Polikoff to be on the panel. I never thought that would happen, ever. I also thought that they'd come at him, but they didn't. And this panel of brilliant people, we got Indira Varma on it, and we got Shami Chakrabarti to chair.
Right. And
all because we sent an email to Liberty, and she nicknamed us the Actors. I mean, how patronising is that? The Actors. We went to Liberty, and we were like having these meetings with lawyers, because that's all social activists in this country are. They're all lawyers. So we all sat around this table and was like, how did this happen? And we made these videos in the lead up to the campaign where I'd go and interview, the way that you are with me, I'd go and interview people. I started with brilliant Don Warrington. It's strange because it took me back to being a boy with my granddad watching Rising Damp. Yeah. And you're just like, what's going on? And I remember sitting on Primrose Hill, and he spoke about he said, we're not asking for more opportunities, we're asking for the same, and for there to be a level playing field. Oh, this was Don Warrington who said that. And after we put out on social media his video, they all followed. From that, we got David Morrissey, David Harewood, who we did a video of them together, and I thought that was quite moving because they were at school together. Yeah. It was really interesting to see these two men sit side by side, working class men, but different colours, and seeing the different opportunities and what one had to do in terms of go to the States, where the other didn't. And so all of this is playing out, and all these great people are coming forward. We're going on Channel 4 News, we're doing all of these brilliant things, but it wasn't until the actual day where you're looking and you're seeing there's people standing up from a crowd of people, like there's Mira Sayol in the back of the auditorium. It's just a punter. She's just at the back. Yeah. She puts her hand up, apologises that her generation didn't sort it out first time round. And you're like, oh, God, like the arrow's going through you. Yeah. But then this woman stood up. I'm a black lesbian, I've got one leg. She literally did.
Tick, tick, tick.
You just realise this is so much bigger than race, because we tend to talk about diversity in its colour. Yeah. When we talk about in this country, we talk about, or definitely in America, they talk about diversity. They only talk about colour. Everything else gets forgotten in terms of sexuality, in terms of your gender, in terms of your physical ability or disability. As I've been schooled by my friends who are disabled performers, we are not disabled, it's society who disables us. These are things I'd never even thought of. Yeah. And I was being schooled up till that event, and then on the actual event, there was a bank holiday a couple of weeks before the first event. We did our own fact findings. We watched TV over a weekend. We found that 94% of it was white.
Right.
And we found that in terms of gender over that bank holiday, 59% was male, 41% was female. And the last census showed us that 44% of London at that time was male, and 56% was female. So there was an imbalance.
Yeah.
And it was just a really... It was a vital moment, and from that we've had a series of events over the years, and the National Theatre have given us a space, a desk. It's lovely. Rufus has been so supportive at the National. He's a good person. I no longer run it because it became so big I just couldn't, and I've got my own career, and so it's run by
an amazing thing that you started.
We started.
I know, but
we
together
started
with all the
totally.
others.
Absolutely, and I think it's...
And are you seeing change?
I am, because when I go to... as I said about Landa's kindly, they invite me to sit on their audition panel. I say kindly, it's a job. I sit there, I feel very grateful because...
That's a privileged seat.
Yeah. Beyonce's sister Solange talks about a seat at the table. I'm like, yeah, I'm here.
All things come back to Beyonce.
Oh God, but I have to. I sit at that table and I look out, and the amount of people, particularly black guys. And I think it's because they're being inspired by this generation of seeing people like Chiwetel or David Oliver or Idris. Lenny is beautiful. I saw it in Roy Williams' Fallout. It broke my heart. And a kid's mobile phone fell on the floor. And I was an usher during Fallout when I was watching it. And the kid's phone fell on the floor and Lenny James picked it up. And this kid screamed out, "Give me back my phone!" And like he's in the audience, this kid. But it's these kids are watching Idris, Lenny, David Howard, David Oliver. They're watching them all, and they're seeing their series that they've gone over to the States. It's on Netflix or whatever the fuck, and they're seeing them and they're feeling, this is us. We can be a part of that. One of the things that Ruth always says to me is, Danny, the amount of people that come up to me and congratulate me on anything are black men with loofah. Because of that following that programme had, is so cult. And I think for the younger generation coming through, that's totally make them feel empowered. And so when they come through the door and you're sitting and you're watching someone give their Maccas, or they're giving them a King John, or sometimes I'm just like, kudos to you.
Yeah.
Kudos to you, because it takes courage to get up and show your work in front of anyone, full stop. Great courage. I get terrified. I get sick before I audition. To this day, I go to the bathroom and I vomit repeatedly. I'm a very nervous person, because I know that then I've got to go and do this courageous thing.
Yeah.
And I do. And they either say yes or no. But the showing of your work is the most courageous thing. And it's beautiful. The sharing of you. And I'm seeing change, because some of the kids that come through the door, who I've seen over the last few weeks, I'm just like, I just want to take you all.
Yeah.
You can't, but it's spiriting to see that change, that so many people have waited and waited and waited for. We've just got to make sure now that it doesn't go back, because, as we know, people in this country will so would demonstrate such complacency and allow that to happen, and allow us to go back. That's why we've got the government we have at the moment. So we allow it out of complacency, out of not knowing.
Let's just hope it keeps on going forward.
Yeah.
Danny, it's been a total pleasure.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for coming on.
Sorry for waffling.
No, absolutely not. Congratulations, you made it to the end. What a riveting episode. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did when I was in the room with Danny. I mean, I knew it had gone over the hour mark, definitely, but I didn't know to what extent until producer Griff turned to me and went, nearly 2.5 hours, that. But it's funny, at the end, I was chatting with Danny off mic, and he went, oh my God, there's still so much to talk about. I had another 2 episodes to record that day, so we couldn't sit down and crack on. But maybe in time, if Danny would like, maybe we wants to come back on and we can pick it up. But thanks for sticking around. What about her? Well, I think we've all had enough talking for one day. Why don't you get off, do what you need to do, and I shall see you next week for episode 39. Until then, take care. I've been Craig Parkinson. He's been producer Griff, and this has been the Two Shot Podcast. Thanks for downloading. Keep hitting subscribe. Tell your mates. See ya. The Two Shot Podcast is presented by me, Craig Parkinson, recorded and produced by Thomas Griffin for Splicing Block. Our brilliant music, is courtesy of Then Thickens. Cheers.